show crew.
Say 2/3. Yeah, I think you got the
Yeah.
fractions right on the first. But yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had it right. I ain't really good at math, so the 2/3 is just me really throwing a dart and hoping it stick.
And I was gonna say that's good math. Oh, she good math.
Oh, absolutely not. That was just the Lord guiding. But I have here Van Everett. He is the executive producer and on-air personality of the Scenario Radio Show, as well as Dana Dane, the I guess what are you, the off-screen show producer
Mm-hmm.
of the Scenario Radio Show. And each episode, what I do is I tell people how I met them, just in case they don't remember, um, because there is always a memory attached. So back in the day, in like the year 2016 or 17, before podcasting was cool, there was like a handful of Black podcasters in Nashville. And I'm not really sure of the event or the exact moment that I met, but the Scenario Radio Show was one of those podcasts and connected with Van. And Van had myself and Ashley Monet at the time on to the show. And that was my first time doing FM radio. So I had to like really think hard to make sure I censored myself and not go against them FCC guidelines. And look at us now. It don't even matter what
Hey.
you say.
I'm
FCC.
glad that I did not know that. I didn't know that you were working to censor yourself at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a hard censor, but I was more aware that there are guidelines on radio that you
Uh-huh.
can't do on podcasts. And so on our podcast, we were definitely like super unfiltered. Um, and so switching over to radio is like, okay, now I have to be very aware that there are parameters and guidelines. So that is how I met this 2/3 of the Scenario Radio Show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next, if y'all could just kind of go a little bit deeper into the Scenario Radio Show and what you guys' role are, just so people can get a little bit more understanding of what that's like. And we can
Okay.
start with you, Van.
All right. It's well, when you went on our show, it was a radio show. Now it's a podcast. It's no longer a radio show, but it's still pretty much the same format. And that's why we always call it Real Talk with a Playlist. Because what we do is we discuss everything. There's no topic that's out of bounds for us. And what we do is we build a playlist around whatever the subject is. Because like somebody you can appreciate how music sort of interacts in all about every aspect of our lives. And when you ask a person about their song pick that for the playlist, you get to hear something about them that you otherwise wouldn't hear. They'll tell you a story about themselves unintentionally. So it was a way for us to one talk about things that we felt were important and sometimes fun as well to Black people, but also at the same time to build connection with people.
Got you. Now, how did you end up starting a radio show? So, like, how did you even get into the FM version of it before? I think I understand why you switched to podcasting. It's probably just
Yeah.
easier, made sense, and times are changing. But how did you get into that FM bag?
Um, I uh I was just really interested in doing radio again. I had done radio back in the mid 90s for a little while, in Huntsville, Alabama. And I always liked radio. I like the energy of things happening in the moment and you having to sort of, you can it's something you capture when you're on radio, just not like even doing the podcast. But so when I decided I wanted to do it, I did want to do both a radio show and a podcast. And I was just going to filter both through the same vehicle. And we found an opportunity with Radio Free Nashville to make that happen. And once that opportunity came, it was like, okay, well, I got to put a team together and went from there. That's where Dana came in.
Yeah. I've known Van since I was a teenager, and I was fresh out of college, fresh, just graduated, cum laude with a music business degree. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to help me with this radio show?" Yeah, of course I will. So I just started doing like the audio songs, audio production during during the live show, learning on the fly because he put his trust in me. And when I tell you that, I ain't not do none of that. But he just knew I was gonna do what he asked, and I tend to do what I'm taught, so I'm a good student in that sense. So yeah, he put his faith in me, just having me run the audio portions of the show, the songs, especially when we were back live during the radio show. But now in this when we're in this podcast space, I still do the same things. He trusted me enough to have my own little segments, little pop culture segments, the segment formerly known as This Week in Black Twitter, y'all, where I kind of just talk about, things in pop culture, things that may be happening online, educating Black people on certain topics that they may have missed online that week. But yeah, just felt confident as a fresh college graduate that, ooh, I'm gonna be in music, I'm gonna be in radio. Like none of my friends podcast radio, like that was unheard of. People were like, oh, that's tight, it's tight, and it's tight. It's really cool. So I just kind of do my thing in the background. I ain't even used to talking this much in front of the camera, but here we are.
Nah, I like that. So tell me this, because you are young millennial, right? Are you before 95 or after 95?
Before.
Okay, so you kind of like mid millennial. So
Yeah.
you team up with Van, who just said like he started radio in the 90s. So you coming in as, freshly out of college, milk still on your breath. What was that experience in learning from somebody who has had the radio experience and has this wealth of music knowledge coming from a different generation? How was that experience for you?
I would say prior to that, Van and I have been friends. He's kind of been
Okay.
like my mentor for a very long time. So we kind of work well together in spaces anyway. But just watching him put that Van talking into the microphone head on, that was new to see. So seeing how he interacts with the guests, the topics that he picks, the angles he'll go with those certain topics, and of course adding the music playlist to the show, that's just cool to see create because Van does at least, I don't know, 98% of the show. That little 2% I may come in, but he carries the bulk of the ideas, the vision. Uh, it's just amazing to see him as a businessman doing that part of it. And then also it's hilarious because it's Van. You know what I'm saying? Talking to doing things like this. And we love to joke and mess around. So it's always kind of funny too. But I just myself am just a sponge and I've learned a lot from Van and watching him do radio and watching him do music and watching him do anything of that nature. So I kind of follow in his footsteps in that way. But it's a pleasure to see, to be honest, and it helps me in my own career and music and stuff like that too. So yeah.
Okay. That's
I
what's
think it
up.
also needs to be said that me and Dana actually created the theme song. Well, both the theme songs for this scenario radio show, the radio and the podcast, both we did those theme songs. If you've ever heard those, both of us uh, wrote and
Yeah.
composed those. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a lot of faith in me because I hadn't wrote nothing before, but he knew what I was capable of, and I always liked that he believed in me in that way.
That's what's up. Again, thanks to both of y'all for just being here and taking y'all time out. And I will say, Van, you are a great encourager. You have encouraged me at times that you probably didn't even know I needed it, where I just kind of been walking around and being like, you know what? I'm sick of these folks and I'm sick of these people. And I keep trying to help and use my voice and my platform and my skills. And then Van to come in and say something like, your voice is needed. And then I'll be like, you know what?
Yeah. Well,
Let me
okay, just to be clear, despite the fact that you so hard on Gen Xers,
I'm gonna get into that too.
yeah, the first time you were on our show, I was like, oh, she's got something going there. She has a point of view. She's thoughtful. She's inquisitive. You all of the things that a media personality needs to be good at what they do. You have those things, and
Oh, thank
and
you.
and so when you're that good of a communicator, I'm somebody communication is important to me. It's a premium thing for me, clarity and communication. And you're somebody who always seems to communicate with clarity and an understanding that a lot of people don't seem to be able to get across. And it's like, no, so I always encourage that. It's like the more that we have out there, the better.
I definitely appreciate that because I always feel like I'm not communicating properly. So I'm always thinking through like, how do I say this in a way that is easily digestible, but doesn't necessarily water down the point, and still will keep people engaged. So I'm always trying to balance a slight mix of funny, with thoughtful and all of those things. So when you told me that the first time, it was definitely at a time that I was kind of like struggling with like, okay, where does my voice fit within all of this? So again, grateful for you, grateful for Dana, and all of that. Van, you look like you had something you were about to
Yeah,
say.
I was just gonna say what you're saying is the exact same thing I feel every time I finish talking. I feel the exact same way. I think that's just the thing about good communicators is that we're always worried if people are really understanding what we're saying. There's a certain level of alienation that you feel, and you're like, I don't know. But that tension is what makes you a good communicator because you're willing to make the effort to communicate in ways that other people aren't.
That's good to know because sometimes I'd be laying in bed like, I probably shouldn't have said that. That was too far. I wonder
I
if
do the
that makes
same thing.
sense.
I do the exact same
They
thing.
probably think I'm an asshole. I wasn't trying to be an asshole. Am I an asshole? I probably am an asshole a little bit. So,
Dana can tell you she's heard me ask before, did that come across? Did that make sense? Did you understand what I was saying? Do I, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
got you. So that's just the intro. We're gonna get into what y'all came here to do. We're gonna get into these top five picks in this playlist.
Right.
I'm gonna get into Van's Gen X picks. Van, I keep telling myself I want to start a friendly Gen X war series, video series. I just don't necessarily at this point want to put the energy in it and deal with people who don't know that it's like a joke because I can already see the comments now and it's like I don't I don't have the energy.
Yeah, you have fight on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't have the energy to fight with people. It's just not today, Satan. But for those of you tuning in for the first time, this is the 5 Dish Changer podcast, and we are entering into the 5 Dish Changer segment. And in this segment, both of our guests are going to go through their top 5 picks. So much like back in the day when we were using those 5 Dish Changers, you had to know what you wanted to ride around to for at least a day to a week because them heavy CD cases and them CD things on the top of the sun visor, you let it down and it rain on your head CDs. It just becomes a struggle. So you either had to find good playlists or good albums or whatever, or a great single that you wanted to listen to on repeat. So that is the premise of this segment. And let's start with you, Dana.
Ooh, we start with me. I just knew you was gonna start with Van.
I'm
Ooh,
starting with you. You were just where my eyes went on the screen. So we're gonna go with your first pick, and then there's a question to go along with this. So your first pick, and what is the first memory that comes to mind when you hear this song or album?
All right. I kind of did my picks in order of how old I was and when I discovered it. So my first pick, and if you've listened to the Scenario Radio Show, you may have heard this before. But my first pick is going to be Butterflies by Michael Jackson. Came out in 2001. Why I picked that, you may ask? Well, in 2001, I discovered Michael Jackson. And that really changed my thought process on music. I really didn't think about music like that. I was occupied just being a child. Um, but every morning, I would get ready to listen to 92Q, listen to 101, Nashville local stations, and they would play You Rock My World. And I was like, oh, that's a slap. Okay, cool. But then they will also play Butterflies sometimes. And I just remember as a kid thinking, this is such a beautiful song. And I've never heard Michael Jackson at the time sing not hard and Michael Jackson-y. It was, but it was kind of more mellow and R&B-ish. And I was like, I I kind of like that. So every morning they would play it at the same time. I wake up every morning for school, listen to that song, get on the bus. And I was like, wow, that's just such a beautiful song. And it made me think, let me look more into Michael Jackson. Who is Michael Jackson? Oh, this what he looked like? Why he look like that then? Now he look like this now. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Got me into Motown. I went in that rabbit hole, got me into Motown. Now I'm going back. Berry Gordy. I'm listening to Stax Records music, Motown music. I'm kind of going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s. So it kind of jump started my research in just music and like the old school music at the time. Now, one thing about me, when I was younger, and I can admit this now, Van likes to call it a contrarian. I'm gonna have to agree a little bit. But while everybody else was, leaning with it, rock with it, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, but I'm listening to Diana Ross and the Supremes. Like that was my mindset a little bit. I was like, oh, y'all listen to Nelly? Baby, I'm over here on off the wall. Like I just had this complex, like I was just better than somebody. But no. But that was like the kickstart of it because I was too young when his Dangerous album came out in the late 90s, mid to late early 90s. So when his Invincible album came out, that was when I knew Michael Jackson. Now all that stuff followed it, 2003 Trial, all that stuff, and I was like, oh shoot. But before that, that's when I discovered Michael Jackson.
So your memory is just the waking up, listening to 92Q one. Okay.
Yep, and
I feel-
becoming up the Michael Jackson stan. That's when that started.
That kind of made me feel a little old, just a little bit, because you were like, that was your Michael Jackson and Awakening, and I was born in 80.
I was born in 92. Yeah, I don't know nothing about no Dangerous.
It makes sense. It just kind of made me feel old. So I was born in 85. So I was born right there with Off the Wall. So I still kind of remember Dark Skin Mike. I remember the first time I ever saw Thriller and it scared me to death. I was at my auntie house and they were watching it on TV. And I was like, this is just way too much. Now I watch Thriller and I giggle that I was
hilarious.
Very hilarious in comparison to what we see now. But I do remember that album coming out and Butterflies and You Rock My World. And Butterflies is actually one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs too. For that reason, it's a vibe. So let's get over here to Van. Your first pick, same question. What is the first memory that comes to mind when you?
Okay, picture it. Good Friday, 1987. I'm on my way to my grandmother's house for the Easter weekend. My mom, we're in the car, making our way to Nashville. 92Q, as Dana mentioned, is what we were listening to. And on the radio comes Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full. This was my first time hearing Eric B. and Rakim. If you are a hip hop head, then you are aware of probably some of their significance. They are kind of like this. They're like the BCAD of hip hop, that there's what happened before them and then there's what happened after them and how everything changed. Because I'm a communicator, I'm somebody who words mean a lot to. This was the first time we heard a rapper who was about technical proficiency. I hear that song on the radio on the way to my grandmother's house. We get to my grandmother's house. I immediately run to the back room where there's a tape deck, turn it on 92Q, put a tape in and press pause and just wait by the radio until it comes on again. And I wait there for a couple of hours. It finally comes on again. I hit that record button. I'm listening to it. I record it and I listened to it that night, and I would not stop listening to it until I learned it that night. I had to know it that night. I couldn't go to sleep without being able to have those words in my brain and able to come out of my mouth. That was, I mean, I was a fan of hip hop as a kid. At that time, I was a kid, but before then, hip hop for me was just something that was cool because as a kid, you want to be do what the cool thing is and be around whatever the cool stuff is. But that was the first time hip hop became art to me. And that unlocked something in me about my own sense of creativity. So that's a memory I have with the song. Yeah.
Interesting. So what was it about that song that screamed art? Was it just the lyric, like the way they communicated lyrically, or was it the full package? Or
he was technically proficient. Like rappers before then rapped about how good they were. They were so good that your girl was gonna go want to be with them, you know, or I got a car or whatever. And it was just simply whatever he said was so technically proficient that you were like, oh, I didn't realize that you could put more rhymes, internal rhymes into each line. And it just opened up the way everyone thought of hip hop music. Before then, nobody had considered that you just only had to do a rhyme at the end of each line. That's what you thought you did. That's what rap does. But all of a sudden he comes and he's like, well, no, there's all these other spaces where you can keep putting rhymes in. And it just changed everything. It was mind blowing.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to go back. Like, of course, I'm familiar with Eric B and Rakim. I don't listen to them on a regular, but now I feel like I need to go back and just really listen to like the technicality of it, just to kind of break down more of what you were saying.
And the thing is, if you hear it, you're not going to hear it and think, oh my God, that's incredible. It's not, it doesn't sound incredible now, but if you listen, again, this is 1987 when I'm hearing this. Listen to stuff that came out in 86 and 85, you'll be like, oh, this is entirely different. How does somebody think of this when this was all they had to listen to? You can listen to there's an old mixtape of Rakim around in 1985, and he sounds just like every other rapper. And then all of a sudden he doesn't. He sounds like Rakim, and it's like, where did that come from? So yeah, if you hear it now, it's not going to be particularly impressive. It's just like listening to Richard Pryor now. You don't hear Richard Pryor and think, oh yeah, that's really something impressive to hear as a comedian. But if you heard everything before him, then you realize how much of a genius he was.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So my dad's a big LL, Run DMC, so Houdini. He likes those guys. So I grew up on a lot of that. He didn't necessarily get off into the Eric B, Rakim, and all of that. But so I'm familiar enough with their catalogs that if I sit down and kind of compare the two, I feel like I'll be able to pick out and hear exactly what you bringing out. So that was our first picks. We're gonna stay with Van this time, and we're gonna go into pick number 2. And the question with this one is, did this song catch you the moment you first heard it, or did it grow on you? So did you like it the first time you heard it, or did it take some time?
This song caught me the very first time I heard it, and it was Keep On Moving by Soul II Soul. It didn't sound like anything else on the radio. And what was interesting, the first time I heard it, I also saw the video. So that had an impact on me because it was this group of Afrocentric people, and they all had locks. They had these African medallions. And these were things that no one else was doing at the time when they did that. And there was something about this very intentional blackness, explicit blackness that they were presenting with their music that really just, it affected me. It affected me. I said, the first time, it wasn't the first time I had seen locks, but it was the first time I'd seen locks that were that way. You know, Bob Marley's stuff was a little, haphazard.
Yeah, a little freeform, not haphazard.
Yeah. A little more freeform. Freeform was the word I was looking for. You're right. But no, it grabbed me the very first time that I heard it. I loved the drive of it. I knew it was something different that I couldn't put my finger on. And when I found out that they were from overseas and they were from, England, and it was like, oh, that's what it is. I just, there's something here that doesn't sound like home.
Yeah. There's this thing that they do in the UK where they slide into the R&B scene and you don't know until they start speaking, because that's another one of those groups. The whole time I thought they were just from somewhere around the States. And then one day you find out they from the UK and it's like, oh, okay. I felt the same way about, man, I can't think of the name, and I love them. You Can't Stop the Rain.
Oh yeah.
They ain't American.
They're not. I can't think of the name now myself. Oh my God.
I listen to them like all the time. They're one of my favorite bands, but I thought they were just
Loose Ends, is it?
Yes, Loose Ends. Finding out that Loose Ends was from the UK kind of felt like betrayal, because I thought they was just from somewhere. USA, some urban town, USA, and it's like, oh, y'all part of the British invasion. But we're gonna go on over here. Back to Dana Dane.
Yeah.
Second pick. And did you like it the first time you heard it, or did it take some time to grow on you?
Okay, just for context, my first pick, I was about 9 years old. Okay, Butterflies, about 19 years old. This song, I was there for its creation. I was able to be in the studio for the first time while it was being created. And it was actually being created by Van himself, to be quite honest. Van took me to the studio for the first time when I was like 15, 16 years old. And him and the local artist, Lo Carter, who I love, by the way, was writing this song and creating this song from the ground up called Seasons. And I just remember hearing it and like, not only just hearing it and loving it, but seeing them make it like from nothing to something, or maybe trying out these vocals, trying out this bass line, trying out these chords. I had never seen the creation of music before. And that just was a big turning point for me. Like I loved that song, and it really just made me say, oh, I like this. I can be in the studio doing stuff. I really enjoyed that. What year did that come out, Van? Do you remember?
Ooh, I don't. It's been a few years. It's been a few years. Yeah.
It had to be between 2008 and 2011. Somewhere between
It was
maybe
somewhere
maybe
around there.
2000, somewhere in that time frame. Because I was still like hadn't went to college yet. I'm pretty sure I hadn't graduated high school, and I just remember hearing "Seasons" by Lo Carter and knowing that my church member and friend and mentor made it before my eyes, and then let me be there while it was being created. And Lo just singing just like an angel, just beautifully, in the writing it just made me be like, I want to do this a little bit. Like, I think I want to do this.
So Google says it came out in 2011, November 1st to be exact.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's when it was.
2011. That sounds right. 2011 Seasons. The name of the album is Seasons, and the name of that
Mhm.
single Seasons. Yeah.
It was Seasons. Yeah. That was like, hey, I think I'm going to go to college and do music. I like this.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things too, Dana. Just production overall. So just any kind of creation, seeing it go from nothing to something, but specifically being in the studio and the song coming to life and knowing that it started out with like dead air, and then before you know it, you've painted time. I love the
It
quote. Music
started off in your head. It started off as an idea, as a melody, as a beat, and then somehow it's on to something for everybody to listen to forever. That's amazing.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. So that's round number 2 of the 5 dish changer. We're gonna go to the third slot. We're gonna stay with you, Dana.
All right.
And the question for this one is, how did this song shape the way you see yourself or the world around you?
Mm. Mm. So I'm gonna go out of order because that question makes me think of a different song that I had in a different order. So I'm gonna pick a more recent record. It came out in 2023. It was "The Age of Pleasure" by Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe before then, thought it was cool. You know what I'm saying? I like Janelle, but I didn't really pay attention to what she was talking about because it really wasn't relevant to anything I really had going on or was focused on at the time. But it's something about that "Age of Pleasure" album. It kind of came off the backs of Renaissance, and while it doesn't really sound like Beyonce's Renaissance, it still had that fun, um,
Energy.
love yourself energy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Inward, I'm gonna just be who I am, freedom type to it. And I said, okay. So I started listening to it and just listened to it all the way through. I said, oh, this kind of slap. That's all this is what she was talking about. Okay, this kind of slap. Then I got to see her live in concert, and I said, okay, I understand. I understand. It really kind of shaped how it really let me say it a different way. It allowed me to become more of myself. It allowed me to explore parts of myself I wasn't sure about, was afraid to, or just really wasn't thinking about. I would say, as far as the culture and society part, this album gay. Okay, just a little, you know what I'm saying? Hey, this for the LGBTQs. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know nothing about, but then I said, oh, you know what? I'm LGBTQ now. You know what I'm saying? Like, not now, but you know what I'm saying? It really kind of helped me do that. So I don't know. It just heard it and felt like that's what I want to feel like. That's the energy I'm looking for. That's the feelings I want to feel. That's how I want to show up in relationships or in community. And that really kind of was a turning point for me back in 2023. So I'm here now, and it is what it is.
That's what's up. My cousin loves Janelle Monae. Shout out to her. My favorite song on that album is Float. The first time I heard that song, I was like, what is this? Because it really does make you feel like you're floating. Like you can walk into any room and just be like, I'm here. And the
Yes.
rest of y'all forget whatever you're talking about because I'm here.
Period.
It is very LGBTQ AI plus or whatever it is now, which is not quite my bag, but from an objective listener, it's still a very dope album
Yeah.
to listen to and to hear what she had going on. And I agree, it was definitely on the heels of that Renaissance freedom. And you can
Hmm.
tell that Janelle Monae had a party while she was making this album. Like I can only imagine what
It
was
felt like
going,
that.
yeah, what they had going on throughout all of that. I feel like it was a lot. Energetically, I feel like it's a lot. I'm not gonna
It
label it
was.
too much. I don't want to have to put too
What
much.
they had going on.
I don't have to put too much allegedly on it, but I feel like it was a lot of alleged activities going on during the making of that album. But we go shift over to Van. Same question. How did this song or album shape the way you see yourself or the world around you?
This album that I'm going to go with is Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. I realize that at the rate I'm going, these are all very relatively old songs, but you know, these answer the question. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. Public Enemy, one of the most political hip hop groups that there ever was. This came out in 1988, which was around the exact same time in junior high that I don't know if either of you ever heard of the book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together? It's a book, it's a sociological book talking about the constructs of race as they affect you at a certain age. That if you see a bunch of children, you in elementary, there all these different races of kids are sitting together at the table at lunch. But by the time they get about seventh grade, junior high, if you get, of course, this is school with a variety of people, then they start to separate. They start to get into what they start to acknowledge what society has been saying about them, whether they want to or not. And so this is that at that same period, while a society is saying one thing about me as a young Black boy, Public Enemy saying another. And sonically, it's enthralling because it's so edgy, it's so aggressive. It's testosterone, audio testosterone, and for you know a young boy who has these political things on his mind to some degree, it was just something I couldn't let go of. When I got my hands on that album, I would listen to it every single day. And the production was, you know, brand new. Chuck D's voice is something brand new. You know, all of it was just something that grabbed a hold of me. He would make references that I would later go and try to find out, well, who are these people he's talking about? What is this that he's talking about? So it shaped my politics at that time in a lot of ways when most eighth graders don't have a politic.
Mm.
Go just a little bit more into that because you said it shaped your politics. In what way would you say it shaped your politics?
It is one thing, just a minor thing to keep in mind when you think of my own backstory. I grew up in Pulaski, Tennessee. Pulaski, Tennessee is a small rural southern town, which is the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. It's not that the Klan was marching up and down the streets every day when I lived there, but there were Klan rallies there every Martin Luther King Day in the 80s. So this was a real thing. The idea of race was something that was already on the forefront of my mind, because my grandparents, my parents, they all grew up in the segregation era South, and they were not people who believed in, worshiping whiteness, and they didn't pass that on to me. So I already had an idea about whiteness and blackness that a lot of the other younger people around me didn't have. Public Enemy made me want to understand more about why I would think the way that I think. So when they're talking about Howard Beach and these riots or police brutality or Farrakhan or all of these different things, they're giving a structure to the feelings that I already had around race, because before then it's just a feeling. I know that something doesn't sit right, but now I'm able to start to put words to it because of their music, and that's how I guess that's the best way of saying how it shaped my politics. It gave it an intentional structure, a scaffolding from which I could build upon. Not to say that I just took everything that they said at face value, but they were saying something when no one else was.
Got you. So now Chuck D has been quoted that they were setting out to make the hip hop version of Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. Do you think they successfully accomplished that mission with this album?
I think they did, and they probably exceeded it. I would say they exceeded it. What's going on? Don't get me wrong. What's going on? I'm not saying that what's going on is passive. It's not. It's very, he's saying what he's saying and he means what he says. But there's something about a melody that allows you to hide what you're saying that they don't have in Public Enemy. Nothing about Public Enemy is melodic. It's all at face value. Now they may, it may be some double entendres and stuff like that, but it's right there, and it's much more in your face. So I'd say they and still they had millions of white kids buying it. So there's something to be said for that. They may have exceeded it in some ways.
I always find it an interesting phenomenon when white kids buy very pro-black albums, whether it's like Kendrick and To Pimp a Butterfly, and you go to a concert and you see it full of white kids. I would love to sit down with some white kids and just pick their brain on what their experience with that is, because there's a lot of different types of hip hop that they could choose, and to choose something that is extremely pro-black is, like I said, that's just extremely interesting to me.
I would say because most of the time those same kids also bought NWA, and they also bought, they bought all of the different stuff. They were the primary buyers of hip hop. They spent more money on it than the black kids did, because most of us couldn't afford as much of it. I would say the thing is, and this is the thing, if you ask a white kid, they're not going to tell you this because they don't understand it themselves, is that the nature of the relationship for white people and black art, or black people in general, is that of a consumer. From the time we set foot on this land, we were a product to be consumed. And no matter what they do, they never divorce their consumerism from their relationship with blackness. So that's the thing I think that always comes into play. That even when they hear something that's political, and it may be something that you hear and it inspires you, it inspires them, but it inspires them the way that a Sprite commercial inspires people. It's like, oh, that was refreshing. I feel something. It's like, but they can dispose of it just as easily as they do any other product once it's become uncomfortable.
Got you. Now, back in my day, those Sprite perk commercials used to hit pretty hard. I ain't gonna lie.
They were dope.
I obeyed my thirst a lot. Okay, so that was track number 3, or pick number 3. We're gonna slide over into pick number 4, and I'm zigzagging, so we're gonna go back to Van. Pick number 4, and the question that goes along with this one: if you could play this track or album for someone who doesn't know you at all, what would it tell them about you?
Ooh, this one is going to feel kind of obscure. It's really a very popular song as far as a jazz song would go. But I know that I don't know all of your audience, but I don't know how much your audience is looking for jazz. A Night in Tunisia by Miles Davis is the song, and what it would tell someone about me if they were to listen to it is that I don't know, because people hear jazz and they don't understand what they're hearing. They always think, well, that's what I want to listen to when I'm relaxing. And good jazz is brain music. There's all these things happening, and it's if you're really listening to it, it's activating parts of your brain that other music wouldn't. So I don't know if people would pick up on that, but if I were to tell them what this is telling them about me, I would tell them that it's it is it it's part of what helped me to think about art in a different way, and also to think about production. The first time I hear the song, I had just gotten a job. I was in high school, and so I took my money and bought this thing called the DMX. It was a cable box that the cable company would bring, and it had all of these different digital radio stations, and you could just listen to all this music, 24 hours a day, as much as you want. And I just wanted to have that in my room. And they had a jazz station. And at the time, I was still trying to learn audio production. And my mentor, who was my uncle, had told me, you need to listen to each individual sound. And I couldn't hear each individual sound. I was hearing the songs. I just hear the whole thing at once. And I started listening to jazz trios, because it wasn't that many instruments. And it was the first time I was able to pick everything apart. And then I heard Night in Tunisia, which I had heard before, but didn't realize on the Cosby Show. They played it on the Cosby Show before. And it was a sample and a Gang Starr song, a bunch of different things, whatever the case. And that was the first time I not only was hearing these individual songs, but I was hearing this nice piece of music working. And there are a bunch of different versions of it, and all of them are pretty cool. But there's one with Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, that probably stands out in my mind the most. But yeah, it would be. I think it would, if it would tell anything about me to a person, it would tell them that I don't just feel art. I feel art is something to think about, and that if you're open to it, that I really want people to be open to thinking about their art, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. You are the third or fourth jazz lover that has been on. Jazz has come up quite a bit throughout this season. So I'm happy that we have a nice little eclectic batch. We go from a little trap to a little jazz. We out here with it. I just looked at. I had to Google it. I feel like I've heard it before, and I just saw that Dizzy Gillespie was the originator. And then, like you said, there's several. There's like 10 different versions of it. Sarah Vaughan and Charlie Parker and all of that. So that's cool. I'm gonna have to listen to each version. I'm one of those type of nerds. I listen to each version and then pick out which one I like the best. So let's go on back over here to Dana Dane, your next pick. And if you had to play it for somebody who didn't know you, what would they say about you? Or what would this song tell them about you?
Yeah, I ain't as evolved as Van. I don't know about no jazz. But my pick this is gonna be classic me. Like, I'm gonna pick Late Nights and Early Mornings by Marsha Ambrosius. I know we were talking about our little melanated friends from across the pond earlier, and she one of them. Now, I would say that album for me, the content of it, what people will, if they listen to it, and I want them to think of me is, I'm a lover girl, okay? I'm an R&B gal. I just love to like talk about and write about and sing about love and intimacy and relationships. And that was like not a fantasy, but like a different version of me. Like, I was one way publicly, not publicly, but just outwardly, I was real, like, about my business. Da, 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 da. But then the type of music I would listen to is more mushy and, you know what I'm saying, lovey. And I don't know if I necessarily give that off. So I want people to know, hey, I'm a lady. As a lady. But on top of that, people are also going to know, if I get into something, I'm into it. Okay, I done seen that lady about 4 or 5 times live at the time. Knew me by name at the time, like not on no Stan weirdo type, not on that type, but like on a like, hey, this is me and a couple other people. These are really fans of me. So that really kind of jump started me being other than Michael Jackson, who by the way, Marsha wrote Butterflies for
Besides
Michael
Michael
Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah.
And then in my mind, oh, I met Michael Jackson. I done met, I done met the lady who wrote my favorite Michael Jackson song, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times. That's amazing. But what people will get from that, other than it being an amazing debut solo album, is that Dana is a lover girl. Okay. Dana is mushy. Dana is emotional. I am not just, you know what I'm saying, serious and about my business all the time.
I am the same way, Dana. I will listen to some R&B all day long. I'm such a sensitive thug because if you mess with me, then
Yes.
I will snap off as if I only listen to NWA. But I
Period.
listen to quite a bit of R&B. I love the Late Night, Early Mornings album. That was like the soundtrack of whatever year that was for me,
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Ran it through the
Sophomore year
ground.
in college.
I felt like it told a story. Like you could listen to it and it felt like it was taking you through a story of like love and heartbreak and
Hmm.
situationships and stuff like that. So it was this super solid album straight through. No skips in my opinion. I've
Yeah.
only seen Marsha Ambrosius once live, but it was the best $20 that I can say that I've spent on the show. Maybe not the best because I don't seen Beyonce, but it was a $20 well worth
Well
spending.
spent.
And I would go see her live any other time. Honestly, I've listened to all of her albums after Late Night, Early Mornings, and they do not hit the same as Late Night, Early Mornings for me. And I don't know if she'll ever be able to touch that magic again.
And I hate that for her. That's my girl. You hear me? But late nights, early mornings, that's 101.
Yeah. So we're gonna stay with you as we go into pick number 5.
All right.
And I'm gonna ask 2 questions to go along with this one just because I can't pick which one I like better. So the first question is, do you think this pick is underrated, overrated, or exactly where it should be in music history? And then the next one is, if you had to introduce the next generation to this song, how would you set the scene for them?
Mm. Okay. I'm gonna go with Solange, A Seat at the Table, 2016, but more specifically, Cranes in the Sky. So it's 2016. Trump just got to be the president for the first time. That was crazy. And I was working my first corporate job in the music business. I'm thinking I done graduated college the year prior. I finally landed me a job in the business world doing licensing and royalties and all that stuff. But I was up in there with them white folk every day, having to, oh, I have never felt such like I felt like I do not belong here. Like I do not want to be here with these people. It was dreadful coming into office sometimes because of just the culture of it. And then everything that was going on in the climate of the, of the world with police brutality, shootings, uh, cops killing unarmed black people. And then Solange got the nerve to release Cranes in the Sky. Honey, listen to it every day on the way to work. Every day. I would sit there in my car, just like I got to go in this building, but I'm gonna listen to this song first. Because I felt that way. I did not feel joyful at the time. I felt, yeah, I am weary. Yeah. I tried to sleep it away. Like I feel like she really had a pulse on what black folk were feeling at the time, especially black women, black men. Um, yeah, it just was a sign of the times, one, because again, Trump had just became president that year too. So it was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Uh, and then two, oh Lord, and white folk, I just couldn't do it. And it just kind of got me through it, just knowing that, okay, more people got to be feeling like this. More people have to be going through this change emotionally, this awakening, this I don't know, just feeling like, ooh, the man on my back. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, that's real. And I agree. That album was right on time for where we were at that period. Because I feel like that was right at the time where healing became like a good thing. Like people really started going to therapy and talking about smoking it away and drinking it away. And it wasn't this taboo thing to talk about. And the fact that Solange probably got one of the best features from Lil Wayne, very first best verses of all time from Lil Wayne on that album. I don't know. And he has a lot of catalog, so I'm not going to say that there's nothing else out there like it, but I will say it's got to be in the top 3 of his verses. I've never heard him be so introspective
Vulnerable.
and
Yeah.
vulnerable.
And pertinent.
Yes.
He was pertinent. Yeah.
And so again, he's got a lot of catalog and there's a lot of stuff I haven't heard, but I feel like Solange knew what to do from a producer perspective and what to ask for and how to get him to dig deeper in. I would like to know if they were in the studio at the same time. If that's how she got that out of him, or was it a lot of send it back, do it again, send it back, do it again, because it gives we were in the studio together and I talked to you and I was like deeper. I was gonna quote Ike when I don't know what's love got to do with it. He was like, rougher anime, rougher.
What would that mean, rougher? What you saying rougher for?
But let's get back over to Van on his pick number 5, and then we'll go into the cultural combo segment.
Okay. Now the questions again, I need to make sure I get those correct.
Okay, so is this pick underrated, overrated, or exactly where it should be in music history? And how would you introduce this song to the next generation? How would you set this scene for the next generation?
It's definitely underrated. And I have no idea how I would talk to the next generation about this album. The name of the album is called Breaking Atoms, and it's by a rap trio named Main Source. It's two DJs, one rapper / producer. I think it came out in 90 or 91, maybe.
January 4th, 91.
January 4th, 91. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think I picked anything that came out after 91. All the stuff I picked is like, but these were formative things. It was a formative time. What can I say? It's Main Source. This is the only album that Main Source ever did. This is also the album that debuted Nas. This before Nas had a record deal. This was the first song he was ever on. Live at the Barbecue was on one of the songs. But the thing about the album that was so potent, and I didn't know it at the time. If you had asked me when I was, in the 11th grade why I liked it, I wouldn't be able to tell you this. But it was a regular black kids hip hop album. And before then, everybody's either larger than life, they're all the hardest of gangsters, they're all supreme ladies men, or they're all ethereal artsy types that are above the fray. And he was none of that. He was simply Large Professor, the lead rapper, was simply just a guy who was telling these stories about his own experiences. Some was about police brutality, but it wasn't from a gangster perspective, with Friendly Game of Baseball. Just hanging out. He had a song called Just Hanging Out, and that's what it was about, just hanging out. And so it resonated with me to hear this young black man expressing himself in a way that was just authentic, without a lot of the pretense that we were accustomed to in hip hop at that time. It was something that just was not done very much. I don't know how I would ever explain that to a young person now, if I was trying to get them to listen to it, because I could tell them that, but they're like, when they hear it again, they're just going to hear just a dude rapping. It's like, well, I've heard dudes rapping from New York. I know what that sounds like. I know what old music sounds like. I don't know why I need to hear that. It's just one of those albums that has much more impact when you understand the context.
That makes sense. One thing I appreciate with I guess there's like 2 younger generations now because Gen Alpha is now in like 9th grade, something like that.
Mhm.
They're Lord have mercy. They're 9th graders, but they listen to everything. So like they will take an album like this, like the Breaking
Mhm.
Atoms, I'm sorry, and they'll listen to it as if it's something that was released yesterday, if it sticks with them and if it's their
Yeah.
vibe. Um, they don't like they will listen to, of course, their whoever their rock stars are, but I think music is kind of so trash now, and especially now with streaming, you can get anything at any time, and
Uh-huh.
nostalgia music is popular. So there is kind of no decade. Like you can kind of associate something with a decade, but somebody will make a boom bap album right here in
Yeah.
2025 and they'll listen to it and then they'll be like, oh, and it's featuring Breaking Atoms. And then before you know it, they'll all be going to a Breaking Atoms. Well, not that's not the name of the group, but the main source. They'll all be going to a main source concert out of nowhere,
Mhm.
and it becomes like this super niche thing. So I don't know. I don't know how you would, put that out there
That
for
makes
them,
sense.
but
That
I
makes
think
sense.
for the kids who are hip hop that are into hip hop, they would probably appreciate it a lot more, especially those that are into classic hip hop. But
Yeah.
we're going to move into our next segment, which is cultural conversations. And this conversation is just, there's no, oh, Van answer this or Dana answer this. We just having conversation. For those of you tuning in for the first time, we just get a little bit more deeper. We still talking music, but just adding a little bit more cultural context to it. So to start off this segment, the question is, who's an artist that you think moved the culture forward even when folks weren't ready?
Hmm. That's a good question.
It is. Um, I know it sounds probably cliche, but I think I think Stevie Wonder obviously is one of those people, but not for the reason I think some people realize. Um, it's just the timing of everything that worked out for him in such a way that he made it possible. I mean, Motown wouldn't have survived the 70s if it wasn't for the fact that Stevie Wonder had just turned became an adult and his contract was up, and Berry Gordy had to pay him all of that money at once that they'd been holding back. And so what happens is he has access to all that money, and the whole time he won't re-sign a new contract because he wants to get what he wants. And but at the same time, he's just at the studio working on all the stuff he wants to work on, new equipment, new technology, and he's crafting all of these classic albums that are going to change the world. At one time, that big 3-4 album run that he had in the 70s,
Yeah.
and it changed the way the Motown machine worked, because before then it was like, no, here are your musicians, here's your producer, do what they tell you to do. And so nothing was really coming from the heart of the artist. And once they saw what could happen if you just let an artist do what they're doing from their heart, then it's what's going on. And then it's, Hear My Dear and all these other things, Marvin Gaye. And it was one of the first times that Black artists began to not just put out albums as a collection of singles. It became a matter of their own expression. And so that's something we still live with today. The idea of the Black artist as an expressionist is all stems from Stevie Wonder having the opportunity to express himself fully and wholly with no one having their hands on the product but him doing it the way that he wanted to do it.
Yeah. I one of my favorite. Well, it's my own quote, so I don't know if I should say it's my favorite quote, but it's my favorite quote of mine to say is like slaves don't make good music. So I've never heard a good album from a person who is stuck in a deal.
Hmm.
But when they have that freedom to create, now it's not always the best creation if they have the freedom. And I think some artists need the structure where other artists like a
Mm-hmm.
Stevie Wonder is just incredibly talented. He doesn't need that. But I also even think with the structure there, you have to kind of give a creative or artist a long leash to go and explore these new sounds. And sometimes you might have to help them package it and polish it
Yeah.
without taking them from it. But I've never heard a great album from somebody who was a slave in a slave deal. And I could be
Mhm.
wrong. I might, would be surprised who was deep off into a slave. Maybe TLC. They was
I
definitely in a
think
slave deal,
I
but they
think
didn't
your
know
I
they
think
were
your
slaves.
yeah, that's what I'm about to say. I think your assessment is correct. You've never heard a good album from somebody who found out that they were a slave. When they were a slave and didn't know it, they were making great music. But once they realized they were slaves, all the good music came to an end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not doing this anymore. But I definitely agree, and I totally think that if Barry Gordy would have stayed in Detroit, Motown would probably still be a powerhouse today for Black music.
Mhm.
But and I respect everything that Barry Gordy did, but his need to kind of assimilate into white culture and be in LA and everything kind of watered down what he was doing because he was in the neighborhood and he had fresh crop of talent. You go to LA and then it's like oversaturated and you have all of these options. You're not getting these kids from the hood who, trying to get it out the mud and willing to put
Mhm.
in the work that he was doing for artist development. What about you, Dana? You got an artist that you think
Yeah, the more I hear you and Van talk, the more I realize, oh, I'm pretty surface in my answers. Let me let me try to dig a little deeper. Um, go with Alicia Keys, and I say that because I think her debut album came out like 2001,
yeah.
and it was the neo soul era in a sense, where everything was like beginning to be like pro black. Them what kind of locks you call them, Van? The haphazard look haphazard locks. Um, and while Alicia wasn't quite as neo soul, she was slightly more polished in that sense.
Mhm.
Feel like her being a singer songwriter, a musician, and then the content of what she was releasing at the time really inspired like more musicians, I believe so. People would liken some of her music to not to Stevie Wonder, but as far as because she played the piano, a lot
Mhm.
of people wasn't just doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like she was not necessarily a sex symbol. She wasn't super outwardly with her sensualness, but she was cool. She was um sexy at times. And that kind of juxtaposed the more, okay, we're kind of like, not that she wasn't women empowerment, because I don't want to say it like that. 'Cause I'm trying to say like a Jill Scott and an Erica Badu. She was slightly different from that. And I feel like for people who weren't yet that close in their blackness, Alicia Keys kind of showed a different light of a black woman in a sense. Who could do all of those things? Not just somebody a record label found and gave them a song to sing real quick because they was cute. Nah, she was writing them songs. She was playing that piano. Okay, she was doing what she needed to do, putting them projects together. So I'm gonna say Alicia Keys.
Okay. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Van.
think I think what you're saying is that the thing about Alicia Keys was that we were in an era where you didn't see a lot of people who put musicianship in the forefront
First, correct.
unless they were neo soul, and most neo soul artists didn't care much about polish. Whereas there was a polish to Alicia Keys, and she was also uh her style as a songwriter was more classic. It was a classic songwriting
Yes.
style. It was what you would think a Motown artist would have come up with. It had all of the components to make sure that it delivered in that way. And that was something that at that time there was this big gap between people who were into musicianship and people who were into polish. Those two
Hmm.
weren't together anymore. Not like they were in the Motown era. It was like all the polished people were people who were very electronically based music, as far as the creation of it. And she had a good healthy balance of all of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
And Dana, you said that she was like Stevie Wonder. I agree because they both had the braids, they both had the piano.
But her braids was here though. They wouldn't
I mean, his his braids had like a 2 year
mind of
head,
their own.
a 20-year head start. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but he didn't know. He couldn't. He
he
didn't know.
he did. I think he know. He got to
Hey,
know.
hey, not too much on Stevie Wonder braids, man. Look, I ain't standing for it. I'm not gonna stand for it. Just
Stevie.
like his song.
Stevie know them braids start
But
at
does
a
he?
he got a hand.
And he can feel
He
the
can
breeze.
feel.
Yeah, you're right.
He
You're
got
right.
kids. He done felt other people hairlines. He done felt his kids' hairline. He done felt his wife hairline.
Oh,
I'm sure. I don't know if he was as womanizing as Ray Charles, but I'm sure he done felt a couple of hairlines on some women.
Yeah, you're right. He know. He know.
Stevie
Well
know
aware.
that his hairline is not starting at a normal starting point. Also, when he gets his hair done, he know that they are not starting in the same place they started in 1976. They are not gripping the braid in 76. They gripped that braid in the front, and now they gripping that braid back here.
His head going all the way back. Like he can feel it. He know.
Stevie know.
You
Stevie
right.
know
You
what's
right.
up. He know what's up. I ain't gonna let. I ain't even. Nah. He know. But
oh, shame on y'all. Shame on y'all. Talking about Stevie, man.
so now with that, hold on. I feel like I'm getting a lot of feedback. I think it's me. Do you guys think that artists today still see themselves as cultural leaders?
Say no. And I'm gonna say no because a lot comes with that sometimes. Speaking out, voicing your opinion, trying to even guide the culture in a more positive light. Artists be afraid to lose their deals. Artists be afraid to lose their sponsorships. They're afraid to lose their followers. They're afraid that they can't monetize. I don't think that's a focus for artists today. Now, there may be some far few between, like a Kendrick, like a, you know what I'm saying? But in general, I think people are afraid.
What about you, Van?
I sort of agree. I think the only difference is now because the music industry is so bifurcated and divided into all these small subgroups that I think that there are artists who definitely feel that they are leading the culture, but they're not leading the culture. They're leading their own subculture. And I think they
Mm.
probably whatever they feel is the responsibility that comes with them being a leader in their own subculture, they take it seriously. I don't know if they think that they could even have the impact to be um much of a leader beyond that. And to be honest, there's never been a time where most artists thought that they were leaders in culture. You know, most of them are kids. Most of
Yeah.
them are kids. They don't. It's not like they know what they're looking to do in the first place or how to manage any of it.
I mean, but most of this ain't about music, but most of the civil rights activists were kids too. You know what I'm saying? I think it just depends on the time, kind of. And I know this is not necessarily the same time as the civil, you know what I'm saying, Jim Crow. But I think it's so easy to be canceled now that, like you say, to your point, they kind of focus on their subgroup. But as a leading the culture as a whole, I feel like they feel like it's too much responsibility.
Yeah, I would say that kids nowadays, or I'm just say period, because music, especially popular music, is usually the subculture that becomes the dominant culture. So they're typically rebelling against whatever is going on in their situation. So like if you take rock, and I'm gonna do the 80s rock era, the disco sucks era of rock. Like that kind of birthed out of, okay, we're blue collared, you know, white guys, and these people out here in these flashy disco, going to Studio 54, doing things that we can't afford. You know, it's the Reagan era, so the economy is pretty bad. And so they're rebelling against like this social class thing. They're not necessarily thinking of it worldwide, and they're not even necessarily thinking of Black struggle in that particular situation. They're thinking of like, okay, I have a single mom, you know, again, it's the 80s. So women can now divorce these husbands that they might not have liked or might have mistreated them. So you're seeing more, you know, higher divorce rates. So they're going up single moms, they're going to school, economy's bad. And then they have this rebellion. So I think there is a part of it where the youth are the ones to lead, because the older we get, the more we become consciously aware of like being canceled, or I can't lose this job. I need these benefits. I got kids to feed. Whereas kids, they are kind of more, you know, just, I don't think they're waking up, and not all of them are waking up saying, I'm going to be a culture changer today. But it kind of stems from like, I'm sick of the shit that's going on in my life. Therefore,
Mhm.
now I'm just gonna rage against the machine, so to speak. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah.
So how do you guys wrestle with loving the music while not loving the machine behind it? Because the machine, it's always been there, but it's gotten a little bit more crazier. They're not even trying. I think going back to the Alicia Keys thing, like, we can see Clive Davis as problematic, and you know, perhaps he was allegedly, I don't, historian came out fully to say, but the things alleged about him, he's a problematic guy. But he developed his artists. He made sure Alicia Keys was polished. He made sure Whitney was polished. He made sure Brandy was polished. He made sure Monica was polished. Aretha Franklin, all of these people. So how do you guys kind of wrestle with, okay, this is the machine that feeds the music, and I like the music that the machine feeds, you know, on average?
I think we're in a probably a really good place for artists creatively, as far as them being able to do what feels true to them. So I think we're getting a lot of authentic art. But the same technology that is taken away, you know, the power of labels and allowed artists to go out and do their own thing is also the same thing that has made it where nobody knows how to write a bridge anymore, or you know, nobody understands the power of melody. Really, it's kind of like it's not. It's a lot of songs don't have a melody as much as they have a cadence. Sometimes. Um, so I mean, I am in love with the fact that artists are free to do what they want to do. I am in love with that. I do like I've heard, you know, a lot of really good stuff come from it over this time. Um, I don't know if I want the machine back. What I want is for art to be a part of the community in such a way where younger artists and older artists can build something better together that serves artists and serves their communities. Like, I want to see young people learn how to craft songs in community, but that would require everybody to take a little bit less time in the digital space and start getting, and y'all have probably heard me say this before, most young artists now have never performed in front of people. By the time they have, they already have put their first single out. They haven't really performed in front of people. And if you don't perform in front of people, perform with other people, engage and collaborate, then your music loses a certain organic feel. You know what I mean? There's something to be said for being on a stage, singing a song, and it's not quite working, and you're finding out right now it's not working, and you have to adjust because the energy that they're giving you. So now you got to do something to get that energy, you know, where it needs to be with them. And we're missing that, and it's showing in the music. So that requires people getting together. I would love for music to be more collaborative in that way. If any part of the machine were to come back, that's the part I would want.
Okay, yes, that's what I was gonna ask. If you were saying that that's the part of the machine that's the part that the machine benefited or provided, was that structure, that experience, that I almost said grooming, but that's not what I'm trying to say. That
Development.
development. Correct. I agree with what you just said, Van. I think that because, like you said, we're in the digital age where anybody can really just be a creative. I think that's good to a sense because it makes people realize you don't have to be chosen. You don't have to be picked out of the crowd to somebody just hear your big break and hear your song. Put it on Spotify right now. Well, maybe not Spotify right now, but put it on Apple Music. Put it on, put it on the internet. If you want somebody to hear something that you created, it can be out. But to the public, but to Van's point, that development. Can you sing it live? How's the hook? How's the bridge? What's the melody? Do you remember the words? Can you breathe? Can you dance? That part of it shows. But I agree, pretty much what Van said. The creativity is through the roof now. Anybody can release anything, but that structure, that honing in on your craft, sometimes you don't get that a lot in this with artists nowadays.
Yeah, I agree as well because it misses the polish. So back to going to Alicia Keys, she had the polish with the talent. Now a lot of times we're seeing the talent without the polish or the polish without the talent. So somebody might go viral, shout out to Ice Spice, I guess, but she has the polish. She's not what I would consider the most talented artist out there, where there are people in Nashville or wherever else, Everyday USA, who are hella talented, but they don't necessarily have the system or the polish behind them. And I think one of the disservices of not having the Black boutique labels is we don't have the polish. So like I kind of look at them as like when you take your car to pimp my ride, I don't know what they call those type of car places, but you get your enhancements and things. Like the boutique labels, their goal was to take these artists that were from neighborhoods that these boutique label owners, whether it was Master P or Jermaine Dupri or L.A. Reid and Babyface, they're taking Black artists and they understand Black culture, so they know how to develop and polish the talent without removing the soul out of it or having them dumb down what it is that they have going on. But with that, my next question is, when you think about the next decade, what role do you think music should play in shaping the culture?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I know what I guess I know what I think it should do, but I can't see how. I can't see how music can be a driving force in our culture in a positive way. It would require a lot. It would require a lot because music, unfortunately, one of the things about music is it's becoming less and less a byproduct of its own surroundings. And I guess that's a digital thing too. So, music doesn't sound like the place it came from a lot of times. It just sounds like music. And it seems as if people's creative process is so divorced from reality in a way that I don't see how they can drive the culture in any kind of positive way. You can be divorced from reality and drive your culture in a negative way. And I'm not saying all music is negative. I don't want to say all young people and their music is negative. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that because connection is not important for us as people anymore, music is not a means of fostering connection. You build these small communities, but even that isn't connected. It's just that they're all a community. They may show up at a concert together and watch that artist, but it's not It's not the same. We're not living together with music. I'm living with it in my own earbuds. You're living in it with yours. My kid is in the back seat living with whatever they're living with. We're not living with music together. The music that, music used to be for certain occasions. Oh, this is what I listen to when it's time to clean the house. This is what I listen to when I exercise. This is what, and now it's like, okay, well, yeah, that may be the case for you, but everybody else doesn't realize that's house cleaning music when they hear it. So the further along we get, the less and less those connections are going to be there unless something drastically changes.
I don't have anything to add to that because that was very well put.
I'm going to push back just a little bit. I'm going to be the contrarian this time. I
Please
think
do.
we're seeing a lot more digital communities. So like, and it's big in K-pop. Like K-pop fans are crazy. They're like the boy band fans back when NSYNC and New Kids on the Block. Like, and I have a coworker who's like super into K-pop, and she's gonna travel the world with these people, and she has friends who are a part of these fan clubs, and they trade these K-pop cards like Pokemon cards. And she was fussing because she has a friend that's in another country that was supposed to send her one of these K-pop cards, but she can't get it in the US anymore because the tariffs are hitting, and it added another $70 in order for her to even get the card into the US. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of Discord groups where a person might be a fan of, I don't even know who these, I'm gonna say Sabrina Carpenter because I don't really know nobody that's out. A Sabrina Carpenter in their own Discord, and they're all talking about Sabrina Carpenter. So I think it's different from the analog days where, like you said, Van, we clean up to this, or this is our region. So therefore Atlanta has snap music, or they have trap music, and New York is known for boom bap, and I'm gonna say like Virginia is known for these spacey sounds, southern sounds with these spacey elements on top. Futuristic would probably be better. Futuristic, southern futuristic sounds, and the G-funk of the West Coast. I think what happened, and this is the one time, nope, I'm gonna blame Gen X. I was gonna blame the millennials, but I'm gonna keep it on Gen X. When streaming hit, everybody just kind of went to streaming, and it's like, okay, we just gonna stream, and it's new technology. I can get my music out there. And we didn't consider that the next generation, one, didn't have music in school, education in school like they used to, and that they didn't understand regional music. I think what we're seeing is regional music trying to make this comeback. Kendrick drops GNX, which is, regional, or, Cali, but mostly regional. Metro Boomin drops this album that he has that's like old school Atlanta, where he has Waka Flocka and Roscoe Dash and those guys out on there. And then Jermaine Dupri just dropped like his Magic City, I guess, soundtrack to go with the documentary. And that is kind of regional as well. So I'm seeing where the older generation is kind of going back to regional. They see the missteps, and it's like, wait a minute, everybody sound the same. We need to get back to making some regional music. And I think that's going to continue this whole like Discord chat, these Reddit message boards and things like that. Cause I'm a YouTube junkie. And when you get into the YouTube, like, that's the new blog where they're gonna sit and dissect Drake. They're gonna sit and dissect Clips and Kendrick Lamar and all of this music. And then they always tell you at the end of their like show, oh, join my Discord. So they're continuing these conversations about music and hip hop digitally. So that's my only reason for the pushback. I do agree with you. I just think it looks totally different because this generation is highly digital, and so they can connect with someone who's a fan of the same type of music. So like Dana talked about earlier, she was the pretentious, I'm listening to Michael Jackson while you guys are leaning and rocking with it. Where in the digital age, she would have just been a part of a Michael Jackson Discord and fan group, and it would have not even mattered or made a difference. So.
I hear you, and the regional the reach back for regional sound. I agree. I hear that too. Like Jid's most recent album, he's got a lot more Atlanta in it. You know what I mean? It's got a lot of that Atlanta feel to it. So I get that. I just think that when I think about when you mentioned K-pop, the thing that was the driver there was a product, not an experience. You know what I'm saying?
You saying K-pop is the driver, or
no? I'm saying that scenario you were talking about with the card and all of that. Mm-hmm. that it's like music is this thing that's attached to. The only way music is generating a lot of income for people is either for their shows, or if it's attached to a product in some sort of way. And it's not the music itself that people are centered around in the same way, it seems. And I think I don't know what the experiences are that are being tied to it. And I think that it's not to say that people can't experience it digitally, and they can't experience it together digitally. But if it's anything we've learned over this last decade about the digital experience, is that we seem to not really be connected. We are all, there in the digital space, but we seem to be missing a great deal of connection. And over that time, it doesn't seem like people are connecting. Music as a means of connection in the way that I think can be as fulfilling, I guess. And I'm not saying it'll always be that way. I think that if people ever desire connection enough and are willing to find it, then they can do it. I'm just saying everybody, even though people want connection, they are so aggressive and hateful about it that they can't connect. It's like if you go online and someone talks about love and relationships, everybody wants to be loved, but nobody goes on the internet and just simply talks about what it means for them to want to be loved. They want to tell you why this other person doesn't deserve love. And that's what a lot of the internet is, with a lot of digital spaces is, even with music. It's which one of these artists doesn't need to be here. It's like, can we build around the idea that we all hate this one out of these four? They'll put one artist, they'll put four artists, and they'll put one that doesn't even fit in the same genre, just so that people can pile on that artist. And it's like, so are you really building community, or was that for clicks, or what was it? It's just not it's something missing there.
I think that's the pop culture part of it. So like, I think the negative is how people go viral and they get the little TikTok coins or the Instagram coins or whatever.
Because you almost have to. You almost have to do that.
Yeah, like people don't really engage in chat with common sense, and maybe because there is no, discourse to be like, oh, I hate what you just said, and maybe there is, but I think there are these sub pockets, and that's what I mean by, like, when I watch, I'm trying to think of some of the YouTubers. I think I'm not even gonna mess up none of their names, but like there's one, they've started like this collective, and all they do is talk about and discuss hip hop, and they bring their fan bases together, and it's not a piling on of discussion. It's literally people who love hip hop music having these hip hop conversations and having these discussions, and they're building these communities. Now, these aren't people that I often see on Facebook. Like sometimes I'll see like their clips on Facebook or their clips on Instagram. These are people who are making long form content on YouTube and have built these audiences. And some of them are journalists who may have worked at like Source or whatever back in the day. And then they just went, straight up. Elliot Wilson to be one. Off the top of my head, man, I can't think of the other guy's name, but they started out as writers and now they're in that YouTube space. And that's what I mean by like, people are creating these Discord channels and they're having these conversations that aren't necessarily dog piles. I just think you kind of have to dig through the trash, so to speak, to find the gems of people talking about it in a healthy way. And then once you kind of get in that space and the algorithm kind of feeds you more of that, then you see it. And there still is, like, I'm good to watch a good Drake pile, dog pile, like, but he does something every week that just allows people to dog pile on him. But at the same time, you have these, like I said, these different YouTubers, and some of them do it documentary style where they're breaking down hip hop from different eras. Then you have like the cultural commentators that are just commenting on it. So, and I don't know if that's shifting, if that's been there, because I just kind of got into the YouTube bag a year and a half ago where I just started being like, oh, this is the equivalent of me reading the Source magazine or Vibe or whatever. And then I was like, I like it here because it's kind of giving me MTV. Like I can kind of clean up and listen to, people discuss music and art in that way. So hopefully that sticks and becomes the dominant thing. And maybe it hasn't been a dominant thing because we just haven't had top tier music, going back to Drake, not the dog pile on him, but if he was the guy running the industry for the last 15 years, the last like 8 of them was just kind of trash. So
How do y'all think, kind of to your question, AI is going to affect all of that? Especially with these like new, they were mentioning like the terms and conditions with Spotify about them kind of having the right to use whatever you put on their platform for whatever purpose. How do y'all think that'll affect it?
I personally think it's gonna kind of work itself out like sampling. There are lots of dangers in it because it can duplicate itself. But if somebody remix my song and I'm a nobody, and then the remix turn me up, I don't know if I'm gonna be upset about that. And I don't know if I want my music to be on Spotify because I do know Spotify has way too much power and control to do a lot with the music. But I think we're entering an era where AI, especially for older people, we view it like our parents view sampling. Like, y'all chopping up these people's songs and putting it in the music. And what are y'all messing up that good song for? That's not what Entume intended to happen when they made Juicy. Like this Biggie Smalls guy rapping, that was how they felt about it. So I feel like we feel about AI how they felt about sampling, and it's, of course, like anything else, is going to have to go through the wild west before we can get it under control. But I think it's going to work itself out where there's just a different generation who creates differently, because writing a prompt for AI is not easy, especially if you're trying to make a song sound like how you want to. It's a talent to write to that. So
Yeah, I think like for me as a creative, I've been kind of dibbling dabbling back into my songwriting bag, but even into my producing bag, and I'm using some programs like, what's it called, like Splice or something. I
yeah.
forget what it's called. I mean, it's cool, but for me, who in the past do the instrument by instrument, splicing things together to make a beat, they feel like, oh, it's cheating. Like, this ain't even creative enough. This ain't even creative enough. So I wonder if some artists will feel like, let's say Chris Brown don't feel like recording nothing. Okay, they got an AI version of him. Put my vocals on that song. Like how would that work?
I think the thing is, there have always been artists like that. There have always been artists who used whatever tools they could to make dead sounding crappy music, and there were people who loved it and ate it up, and that's not going to change. They'll just have, AI will just be the tool that they'll use, and people will point to it and say this is what's wrong with music today. But there will always still be people who love making music. When you talk about coming to the studio with me that first time, that process sparked something in you, and there's something about that process that can't be replaced. And that's something that there will always be people who will want to be a part of that process, and there'll be people who will want to buy what those people are selling. It's going to be challenging, obviously, but it's always been challenging for good artists to create good art and get recognized for it.
Yeah, and I'm also coming from my major was music business, a music business mindset. Everything I learned 10, 15 years ago, it's irrelevant. Like it's like a whole new thing now. And I'm like, dang, need to go back to school. What I need to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I agree with Van. I just think it's the convenient thing for people to blame it on. But we hear stories, Quincy Jones and them talking about how untalented the Beatles were, but they were one of the biggest bands in the world. And when you think about it, if you start stacking them next to like the Isley Brothers or Funkadelic or the Gap Band, it's like, yeah, the Beatles kind of slid through there because these guys were hella talented. And, you know, they Beatles just kind of got off. They were attractive white guys from the UK with a fun.
Attractive.
I mean, for their audience, stay with me here, Dana. For their audience. I'm more of a Rolling Stones girl, and I don't know if that's an attraction thing, but musically, if you do Beatles, Rolling Stones, I'm more of a Rolling Stones kind of girl. They have a little bit more edge. But I think it was just that, like, for their audience, it's kind of like what's Prince William them? I don't think Prince William them all of that, but for their audience, especially back in the day, Prince William was like that dude because he was a prince. He was from the UK and he was attractive. And I think it's the same thing with the Beatles. Like, they weren't the most talented group. They just had a look. They had a thing that the business was able to attach itself to, and it made the thing go round. Same thing with sampling. I think there's some people who sample some songs and they just put the sample on the loop and then they say go in there and rap to it, and it's just the same loop over and over again. I can appreciate a person who can really use a sample or interpolation in a crazy way. Victoria Monet on My Mama, like, I think that's a crazy, amazing use of a sample of or interpolation. So I think you're going to have some producers and artists and writers who can use AI in amazing ways. You're going to have lazy people to do it. And then you're going to have like your analog, you know, people who still do it the old school way. And it's just going to be a more expensive type of production for people to seek out because of what it is. So that's going to be like going to an antique store and getting a classic version of something versus the, you know, the print. I guess we just talking about art, you know, the hand painted version is always more expensive than the print. So, you know, that's how I look at it. But let's move into our next segment, the parking lot pimping segment, one of my favorite segments. For those of you who are tuning in, this is just a quick segment where we get to flex on people. So the year is whatever year you want it to be. Is the let out. You leaving the party with your friends, your girl, your guy, your homies, whatever's going on, and you pick one song that you playing in the parking lot to flex on everybody, to let them know, like, I'm here and I'm that nigga. What are you playing? And y'all can start however y'all want to start.
I'm gonna let Van go first.
That is I've been thinking about that question because it's interesting because I've never been much of a flexing type. I've never really, drawing too much attention has never been my thing. But the first thing that came to my mind, it reminded me of 1994. And my homeboy we call Big Cookie, who had a Jeep. It's a bronze colored Jeep. He had that thing kitted out and a huge system in it. And anytime we would go anywhere, he would play In Too Deep, Back to the Hotel. If you when the end of the night, that was it. We load back up, Back to the Hotel. That's the song we play. It was a really bass heavy song, and he wanted everybody to hear those lows in it. So even when we would pull up to the club, we could be, if we're 2 blocks away, we're listening to whatever we're listening to. You might be listening to something you like, and he's like, "Oh, we're almost there." He takes your CD out, Back to the Hotel. He wants to pull up, Back to the Hotel, and that's what it makes me think of, because he was all, that was his whole vibe. He was all for that. I was never much of a let him see this is gonna kill him type person. So it's like, hey, it's whatever. But Back to the Hotel is what I'm going with.
All right. I'm gonna have to check that out. I've never heard Back to the Hotel. But I feel like
it's a terrible song, just for the record. I hate the song. I never liked it then, but it was his jam. So what can I say?
Were the lows at least lowing like they should?
The lows were lowing. The lows were lowing, especially in that with that system that he had in that Jeep. It rang out. So yeah, it was doing what it was supposed to do. He loved the song. He probably loves it to this day. But no, it was always a terrible song. The rapping on it was horrible. The beat wasn't particularly impressive. I can't say much great about the song.
Yeah, I never heard of that song. I'd listen to that. I want to know.
I gotta listen to it in the car so I can make sure the lows be lowing, so I can
Yeah.
have the full experience.
I'm gonna go with, and I told y'all I'm an R&B gal. Okay, we do R&B. Me and my friends, we would go out. We want to sing. We want to sing when we get out. We want to sing. Now this may be a little weird. We was playing "Love and War" by Tamar Braxton, like it was going out of style. Like turn it up, top of our lungs, hitting every note. Period. Windows rattling. We singing at the top of our lungs, trying to hit them high notes. I don't know. I just remember us being in college, just having just so much fun, just singing. It didn't got to sing good. It didn't sound good most of the time, but it just felt good and felt fun. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go with Love and War. Tamar Braxton.
So Dana, as an R&B girly, typically, I mean, there's different stuff because whatever my mood is. My go-to a lot of time is like Rihanna, Bitch Better Have My Money, Beyonce, Flawless. I like ego rap, stuff that's gonna make me
I was
feel like
gonna say Beyonce Party. I was gonna say Party, but I ain't really into the ego stuff. But I get you. I get you.
I like to feel invincible. So I like ego stuff. But I do remember going out one time and I played Her, and it was when she dropped her first mixtape. And you know, that is hella mellow. And everybody looked at me like, is that what that's what we go into the club with?
Yeah.
It is
Bring it
today.
up.
You better catch this vibe and walk in like you on air. But it was something about the sonics of that particular mixtape, even though it wasn't necessarily club music, the energy of it still made me feel like, all right, I can chill, catch a vibe, and come in here and feel like, all right, I'm good. Let's go. So I understand as an R&B girl
Thank you.
how it feels, but don't get it wrong. Sometimes it'll be some Ti or some Waka Flocka or some
And
of that.
I've come to accept this, and Van has helped me, and my brother has helped me. I am not a hip hop person. And I really mourned that and grieved that because I was like, no, I love hip hop. What are you talking about? What? But as I really reflected, mm, I'm an R&B girl. I'm gonna go for a melody and something I can sing every time.
Yeah, me too. I listen to hip hop sporadically. I probably listen to hip hop maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I'm gonna say 2. The rest of the week, we listening to some R&B. It could be old school, new school. Like the other night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just going through Tina Turner's bag, and I know she's
Yes.
technically rock, but I started with Ike and Tina and went all the way through, you know, there, and then I was like, yes, she probably needed to lead Ike outside of the abuse, because she's got a album Acid Queen, and I think it's the last one that Ike did production on, and you could tell every song that he touched. And I was like, his sound didn't evolve, and that's why he struggled so much. And if she would have stayed with him, if he wasn't abusive and she would have just stayed with him, her career would have struggled, because he could not get out of this rock and roll Rocket 88.
That's all he had. That's all he had. One trick pony.
Yeah, that's all he had in his bag. So
this right here, look, because I can see that. That's it. That is exactly it. You said everything you need to say was that right there.
Like, yeah, you can hear Keith Richards and all of these guys producing on the album, and then out of nowhere you'll get one of these, and it's like, oh, Ike at it again. And you could tell other producers were trying to help it not be Ike, but it was still Ike. And I was like, that's why he was doing all that cocaine, trying to figure out what to do, because he just could not grow outside of this good Rocket 88 sound. But as we wrap up, the last segment is our liner notes. And for those of you listening for the first time, the liner notes is just a reflection moment. It's not a long, detailed discussion. And I got a couple of different questions here, but I'm gonna only choose one, and I'm not sure which one I want to choose. So I am gonna go with, if your 5 picks were the chapters of a book, what would the title of that book be?
Ooh. That's good.
Mhm.
And why? Add why to that.
Well,
Oh,
this is gonna sound not cliche, but my name on Instagram is finally Dana Dane, and I feel like finally Dana Dane, like that. The music that I listen to and I pick today encompasses different parts of myself, which help me grow into myself, help me discover myself more. Mentally, spiritually, physically, creatively. Uh, so yeah, I'm a like kind of like my Instagram name because I made that Instagram. I used to have locks. I used to have dreadlocks, really long dreadlocks, and I cut them in 2018. And I just felt such a freedom of like, okay, now I'm just this new. I'm just finally, you know what I'm saying, getting into myself. So I would name it finally Dana Dane.
Okay, all right. And Van, what about you?
I like that. I like that. I don't know. I would say, I guess if I had to name a book something using these 5 songs, it would be It All Counts.
Mm.
And it's basically just because it's a reflection on the fact that all of the things that happen, all the things that transpire that construct the life that you have, the person that you become, it's like it's all there. It's all, they're just all these little bitty ingredients. And you, when you look back, if you take the time to really reflect, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that this thing shaped me the way that it did. So you may think that something just happened in passing, but in the end, it really all counts.
Mm.
That's beautiful. I think that is a perfect note to end on. You know, as kids say, that's it.
Okay.
Clock it, clock it. Again, I want to thank you guys for, you know, taking time out to just come and hang out and chit chat and all of that. I want to thank you to all of our listeners. If you stayed the entire time, you OG, you did your thing on that one. If you popped in and out, we respect that too. If you're listening to us the next day, shout out to you for listening. Hopefully next time you can catch us live. Again, my name is Ashley Autumn. Make sure you go get some merch at talented10shop.com. This lovely jacket I have on is there. Tons of other things. But again, we are live on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we are everywhere the next day. So wherever your favorite podcast platform is, you can find us there. And again, we have Van Everett, Dana Dane, 2/3 of the Scenario Show. And today, 5 Dish Changer Podcast is the scenario. And we are out.